Donald J. Trump on Truth Social, May 23rd, 2024. Evan Gershkovich, the reporter from the Wall Street Journal who is being held by Russia, will be released almost immediately after the election, but definitely before I assume office. He will be home, safe, and with his family. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, will do that for me, but not for anyone else. And we will be paying nothing! Exclamation point. Oh boy. Oh boy. Look, as of now, this is not an aberration from the now distant past. This is not a thing that happened once or twice that can now be generalized into a trend. This is a pattern of behavior, a manifestation of deranged ethics, a failure of basic humanity that diagnoses a profound derangement on the part of an entire political party. For the third time in living memory, the third time, an unelected candidate from the Republican Party, then not in power, has possibly negotiated with foreign governments, then acting as enemies, to keep actual Americans in chains in order to delay their compassionate releases for months to influence his own political fortunes. I say possibly in that sentence because the man's a known liar and may be as full of bilge on this as he has been about so many other times, so many other things in his career. We only have his word for it. But he has claimed participation in a precedent that already includes the then candidate Richard Nixon negotiating in secret to put off peace talks over the Vietnam War in order to offer a better deal for the enemy, thus ensuring significantly more casualties among American servicemen and continued suffering for American POWs while he continued to kiss babies on the campaign trail. It includes then-candidate Ronald Reagan sending a delegation to speak to Iran and make sure they kept embassy hostages in a continued state of terror and in peril for months so that Democratic President Jimmy Carter remained unembarrassed by their plight. Now, Donald Trump, in front of your eyes, claims not only that he alone can save this man, Evan Gershkovich, now being held a prisoner in Russia, but that the man will only be freed after the election, and only if Trump wins, only then. And this may be as full of smoke as most of Trump's promises, but it tellingly might also be true. This said by a man not in power who had boxes and boxes of illegal classified documents in his bedroom and that the FBI can only get back with a raid. Given his closeness with Putin, it would be an easy get. So let us split the difference. Folks, even if it has not been established that he is telling the truth, and has done this, it is still something he wants us to believe. Something he nakedly presents as a good thing. This is the third time something like this has happened in half a century. The message presented by the Republican Party during an election year now joins its tallies of other toxic messages that unless we do what it says, Americans in danger will rot. The operative word here is routinely. De facto hostage-taking is now routinely part of the GOP campaign strategy. Forget all else. Put all else aside. Leave every other argument untouched on the field. And this is a little like abandoning our entire national army to take out an enemy we know we can dispatch with a slingshot. This fact alone should be more than enough, everything else reduced to lying noise. The Republican Party now routinely subverts the opposing party in office by persuading this country's enemies to keep Americans in jeopardy and in chains for its own political advantage. The Republican Party now routinely thinks of captive Americans as an advantage to be exploited. Forget every other argument, every other crime, every other manifestation of psychotic behavior on the part of Republicans. Forget the clown figures that are fun to laugh at, like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Forget the clownish obsession we have with how much the orange standard bearer passes wind in court. Forget the lies, forget the hypocrisy, forget the idiocy, forget the determination to frame the most uncivilized hatred-spewing mania as that moronic construction, owning the libs. Forget all of that. Put it all aside in its entirety and focus on that one thing routinely. The Republican Party now routinely encourages the taking of hostages against its own temporary fortunes. Forget again every other manifestation of corruption. The Republican Party can no longer be taken as the jovial, loyal opposition. The Republican Party can no longer be seen as the defender of what it sees as values. The Republican Party is now, and has long been, if we look at this realistically, has long been a criminal enterprise, and not one that practices dull white-collar corruption, but one that is willing to see Americans, real Americans with guns to their heads, if that gives them another percentage point in November. Now, seeing things realistically, this latest manifestation may not be true. It may only be what this profoundly damaged habitual liar wants us to believe. I confess it. This might just be public relations on the part of a delusional sociopath doing public relations on behalf of himself as a client. But putting all else aside, and I'm using that phrase a lot, putting all else aside, consider that much. He wants us to believe it. He wants us to live in fear of it. He wants to choose him over the other guy out of fear of him. He wants to run not even his potential second-for-term presidency, but his goddamn candidacy as a protection racket. That's what he wants. Forget everything else. When people tell you who they are, believe them. When a political party tells you who they are, believe them. These are gangsters. Murderous, blackmailing gangsters. Accessories to kidnappers. Fomenters of evil in our time, whose political strategy, going back well before the first manifestation of this particular crime, is finding a good Reichstag to burn. This is who they are. They are again, forgetting everything else, the enemies of this country and all that is defensible in the human animal. Period.